where we help Girl Scouts do more than a good turn daily. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Alex.
And today we're going to be learning more about some of the different winter holidays that are celebrated in our country.
Yeah, so we will be exploring traditions and cultures that may be different than our own, so which will help us to expand our worldview, and hopefully you will learn something new.
Today we will be taking a look at Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, and Christmas, so let's get started. Joining us now is Leah Fox Greenberg, our VP of Membership Development here at Girl Scouts Heart of the South, who is Jewish and she celebrates Hanukkah with her family, and today she's going to be sharing more about this holiday with us. Welcome, Leah.
Hey guys, thank you for having me. I am so excited to talk more about Hanukkah. It's an amazing time of year, as we all love it. And, you know, along with Christmas and Kwanzaa, we get to celebrate Hanukkah, which is actually, it's also called the Festival of Lights. So it just makes you smile, just right, Festival of Lights. You know? So Hanukkah is centuries old. In fact, it is BC. It is over, it's actually, it was 168 BC. So, you know, as the Jewish faith, we're close to almost 6,000 years old. So, way back when. There were some, the whole story of Hanukkah, which is again the Festival of Lights, and that'll make a lot of sense in a bit. But there was this King Antiochus, and he was just not a nice guy. Didn't like people who were different than him, to be frank, as we see so often even now. And so Antiochus put all across the land, which would now be Syria, but in the Middle East, and he put all across the land that we only want to believe in these gods. You are not allowed to believe in your God, Jewish people. And we're going to take what you got. And so, as we've seen so much over history, you had a group of people putting another group of people down, and they ran this group of people, the Jewish people, basically up into the mountains. And you had these group of brothers, the Maccabees, led by Judah Maccabee, who said, we're not taking this anymore. We are going to fight for our rights, we're going to fight for our freedom and for our faith. And so they had a battle, and even though, like many times, they were overpowered and you know, Antiochus had this huge army, but they prevailed and they won. And so they were able to go back to their homeland, the Maccabee family, Judah and his brothers and his sisters and all of them, and they were able to go back. But what they found is just a hot mess all over. You know, you guys go to church, we go to synagogue or temple. And so they found all over their temple, it was destroyed. Everything they cared about and they loved, gone. And just gross stuff, just really just disrespectful. And so the Maccabees were cleaning up, and all of the people in the community. And they came to their menorah, which you guys see over here. And you've probably seen this before. It looks like a weird candlesticky sort of thing. Yes. Well, this was the way that the synagogue and the temple used to light. This was their holy, you know, this was kind of like what the cross would be in a church right there up in front. That's what this menorah was in the temple. And the menorah took oil. Mm-hmm. And oil was not something we went to the grocery store and bought. There's no grocery store in the BC, okay? You had to make your own. You had to press those olives, because again, they were in the Middle East, so it was olive oil. So you're pressing those olives, you are making that oil. It takes a long time. It takes over a week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they didn't have any oil to light the menorah. They only had enough oil for probably a day, and it's supposed to be lit day and night, okay? And they only had it for a day. But then a miracle happened, and that's why it's called the Festival of Lights. That one day of oil lasted for 8 whole nights. 7 days, 8 nights, which is why Hanukkah is 8 nights. Perfect. And that gave the people enough time to make the oil, to clean up the temple, and to be whole again.
Aww.
And that's the story of Hanukkah, and that's why it's called the Festival of Lights. So the miracle, what we're commemorating, with Hanukkah and how it all comes together is, one, we always make sure to remember our faith and how important it is to us, and how in a time where many people didn't want us to express our faith, we still did so. We still rose up. And the second is the miracle of that oil. So everything we do in Hanukkah is about, it's great food because it's all fried, because it's oil. You're supposed to use oil. So you guys have probably seen these.
Yes.
I did not bring any. That's on me. Hanukkah starts December 10th. We will make sure to have these.
Yes.
But these are potato pancakes or latkes.
Okay.
And you hear about that a lot. And the whole thing about it is they fried. We do not bake our potato pancakes during Hanukkah. We fry them because that symbolizes the oil. And you're supposed to use a little bit of olive oil, of course, but you don't want olive oil pancakes. Okay. And then the other thing that you see a lot are called sufganiyot, which sufganiyot is basically the word for donut.
Ooh. Yes.
So,
and they're filled with jelly.
And they're filled with jelly. They are specific donuts filled with jelly, hence sufganiyot. I get my sufganiyot at the Howards. I get my sufganiyot at the Kroger. I get my sufganiyot at the Gibsons. You can all eat sufganiyot.
Yes, and our next troop meeting on the 10th, when we're doing our holiday baking, those are what we'll be making.
Well, then you are ready, and as long as you fry them,
we will be frying them.
then you are celebrating Hanukkah properly. And I think probably the last thing y'all have heard about is dreidel.
Yes. Tell us about dreidel.
So dreidel, and I wanted to bring the picture because it's very important. We talked about and of course these are 4 different dreidels, and here's what we have. We talked about that the Jewish people got pushed into a place where they couldn't celebrate properly. Well, part of that was they had to hide their faith. And dreidel, and the reason why we kind of play it during Hanukkah, although we play it, it's a fun game. Play it all year long if you want to. But part of the reason it was also played, and even as far forward as the Spanish Inquisition and other times, there's stories of little Jewish children. So when the evil guys would come in and go, "What are you doing?" They're like, "We're just playing a game, no problem." But what it really was learning Hebrew. And learning math, frankly, as well. So when we play dreidel, I highly recommend playing with M&Ms. I'm a peanut M&M purist when it comes to my dreidel playing. Some people use Hershey Kisses. Some people use pennies. I say M&Ms. But you use whatever you want. And then it's kind of a game of chance where you're in the pot, but each one of these that you put in the pot or take out of the pot, whether it's M&Ms or gold coins, is based on these letters, which are Hebrew letters. None, guess what, means you get nothing.
Oh, look at that.
This is a gimel, the Hebrew letter gimel, and it sounds like it is G, and it means you're getting the whole pot.
Okay, that was my guess.
Yeah.
Get.
Hey, anybody got it? This is a hey. Anyone think?
Like a stop? Or like
I was gonna say stuff like hey.
Hey, whoa now.
And not hey, whoa now, but hey, I get half.
Oh.
Hey, I get half. And this one is that shin. Is you put a couple in. Some people put 2 in. Some people put half in. So you have to put some in with shim.
Okay.
You take some shin with shin. I said shim, that's my husband, but shin
shout out
shim. And hey is half. Gimel, you get the whole kit and caboodle.
There we go.
And none is not, and it can get cutthroat, y'all.
So we want the gimel.
You want the gimel.
Oh, that's so fun.
You want the gimel. You want the gimel or the hay because you take half or you get that. But that and it it's just fun to play, and you kind of get that connection to, wow, this is how people, and I think every faith has had a time where they've kind of been faced with, oh gosh, what do we do to keep going? And this is what they did to keep going.
Oh, that's so sweet. So tell us more about, Hanukkah is over 8 nights. So what do y'all do each night? Are there different traditions or different things that you do each night? You light a candle each night?
We do. So every night we light the menorah and we read. Hebrew is a funky language. We read left to right. So we read opposite of how you are. So in the same thing, we light opposite as well.
Okay.
So our shamus is our head, and we light with the head. So these represent the 8 nights of Hanukkah. There are not 9 nights. There are just the 8 nights. Okay. So we take our shamus, our head, and we light for every night. So first night of Hanukkah, we will light the shamus and it'll look like this.
Okay.
So then by the 8 nights, they're all filled
in.
Mm-hmm.
And do they stay lit, or do you just light them at night?
No, you light them with everything with the Jewish calendar. Mm-hmm. We start everything at sundown.
Okay.
So at sundown, which now in December is like 4:30, we at sundown we light the candle. And unlike the oil that lasts forever, candles do not, and that's okay. I don't want my house burning down.
Yes,
so we don't blow them out. They are not birthday candles, as I have to remind my daughter quite a bit. Yes. They are not birthday candles. We do not blow them out, but we do let them go all the way down, hence the yucky wax that drips. And again, menorahs can come in all shapes and sizes. As long as your shamus, as you'll see, is a little bit taller than the rest. See, here's our shamus here. It doesn't matter how these are.
Okay.
You'll see menorahs of every shape and size. Home Depot actually does, they used to, they do a kids class sometimes, and they take little washers and make these out of them. So it can be made out of anything. The only thing is it needs to have 8. And then it needs to have one a little bit higher for the shamus. And that's all a menorah is. So it can come, just like Christmas trees can come in all different kind of colors and shapes and sizes, so can menorahs.
Awesome. Wow. Well, great. Thank you so much for sharing about Hanukkah.
You're so welcome. I'm excited to share it, and I hope you guys have fun celebrating.
Yes. So thank you so much. And when we come back, we will be meeting with someone to talk about Kwanzaa.
Bye, y'all. Happy Hanukkah.
Welcome back. I'm Alex.
I'm Amanda.
And today we have John Gilmore, who is going to be sharing with us Kwanzaa. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Gilmore.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so Mr. Gilmore is here today, and he's going to be sharing with Amanda and I what Kwanzaa is.
Yes, I'm so excited to learn more about this holiday. And so I was kind of doing some research. So Kwanzaa is a cultural holiday that you can celebrate in addition to Christmas?
Absolutely. In fact, there are a lot of families. It's an African-American and Pan-African holiday. And a lot of families will incorporate it into their Christmas celebrations, because it actually begins on December 26th and runs through January the 1st. So a lot of times people will celebrate December the 25th for Christmas and then begin their Kwanzaa celebrations on the 26th. And then there are people that I know that for their own reasons may not choose to celebrate Christmas, but will do Kwanzaa instead.
Very fascinating. So can you tell us, what is Kwanzaa? So what does it represent to the culture?
Basically, Kwanzaa was created by Dr. Malana Karenga, who is a professor of Africana Studies, and he was looking to provide something that would bring together an appreciation for culture and understanding of African American and African roots. So he put this holiday together back in 1966. And it consists of 7 days, and there's 7 principles of Kwanzaa. And each day, a different principle is celebrated on that particular day. And so families and communities of people come together. They will have celebrations. It was originally, a lot of it was done within the family context, or encouraged to be done with people's families. but communities come together. There are Kwanzaa celebrations that take place at community centers, churches, other outlets where people can come together and gather. So people do it in their homes, but then there are other people who do it in more public settings.
All right. Are there any significant traditions that I guess is very significant to Kwanzaa that is representative of Kwanzaa?
Let me share what's called the Nguzo Saba, which are the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. And each day, as I mentioned, a different principle is celebrated on that day. The first day is Imoja, which is unity. And on that particular day, there are principles that talk about unity and how it is that people can come together and practice that. There's Kujichagulia, which is self-determination. And again, that is instilling a sense of pride in people and helping people to take control of their own destiny. And then there is Ujima, which is collective work and responsibility. And very often on this day, there's an emphasis on being able to support one another, particularly because this is an African-American holiday, supporting African-American and Black businesses and also all of that. And it sort of ties in the next day, which is Ujama, which is cooperative economics. And again, it's about building economic empowerment, economic power within the African-American community. Nia, which is the day of purpose and stands for purpose. Kumba, which is the next day, which is creativity. And then Imani, which is faith, which is the last day, which is on January the 1st. And that's where, of course, the idea of faith from a broad perspective is celebrated and is significant. And there are many things that happen on in those celebrations. There are very often music, dance. There's the celebration of the various gifts. Very often people will put together an altar or a table that has, there's a with the candles that are used for Kwanzaa. There's quite a bit that takes place in these celebrations.
Oh, so there are candles that are used in Kwanzaa? I don't think I was familiar with that. Is it 7 candles that are representative of the principles?
Each day. And in those, what happens is that each one is lit on that particular day. And then there are some things that take place on that with regard to that. It's a celebration where there's a lot of emphasis also on children being an important part of this. But there's also the offering of the first fruits and all of that. If you were to see a table that is set up with the candles and all of that, there's also fruit and other things that are gathered there, to different symbols that are part of the Kwanzaa celebration.
So with Kwanzaa, and I'm sure all holidays, is food a big aspect of it? Are there certain traditional dishes that you guys, eat every year? I know food is definitely a very popular part of other holiday celebrations.
Well, not necessarily food in that way, but at the celebrations, as I mentioned, there's the table that is set up, and it has different symbols that are a part of that. There's mazo, which are the crops, and those are symbolic of the African harvest that are there. There's the makeka, which is the mat that is placed on the table with all of the other elements that are there. And when I mentioned candles, that's the kanara is actually the candle holder that where the candles are placed in, and it's the candles are red, black, and green that are placed in there, and it goes back to signifying the roots relating back to Africa. And then there's corn that's usually placed on the table, muhindi, which is symbolic of the children and of the future. There's a unity cup that's very often placed on the table that has a real meaning. It's the unity cup that is emphasized there, and very often is a part of what may happen with that unity cup. And different people will use this in different ways, but the pouring of libations, which is a custom that's practiced by many African cultures, where there will be liquid that will be poured from the cup into the ground, maybe poured into other ways, but it's a way of acknowledging the ancestors. Because from a perspective of many African cultures, ancestors being a very important part of people's present day lives. There are the 7 candles, as I mentioned, the Mishuma Saba, where they are correlated with the 7 days, the 7 candles. Then there are different gifts that are a part of that, oftentimes books and other things that contribute to knowledge and recognizing knowledge and all of that. And then there are 2 supplementary symbols, which are the red, black, and green flag, which is the Bendera, which was something that Marcus Garvey created to symbolize the black, which is because black is for the people, red is for the struggle, and green is for the people's future.
That's so interesting.
Wow, I never knew that about Kwanzaa. Is there anything that you'd want to close us with? It sounds like Kwanzaa is it's very strong in its meaning of community and represents African Americans or African descents coming together during this time. Is there a particular reason why it's during the month of December?
I think when Malanga Karenga first did it, he wanted to have for people who don't necessarily, it's not in competition with the Christmas holidays or anything like that, I think, but really he wanted it to be at a time when there were opportunities for family to come together, because there's a very strong family component. There's a very strong emphasis on children being a participant in this process. And if you think about typically during the period between Christmas and New Year's, children are home from school. Oftentimes people are home for work or have a few days off for work. So provided an opportunity to observe these 7 days and to have a way of making things more easily accessible, I guess you could say.
That's very well thought out. Amanda, do you have any other questions?
I don't think so. Thank you so much for joining us today and helping us learn a little bit more about Kwanzaa. All right.
Is there anything that you would like to share or kind of close us out with before we?
I think that Kwanzaa is a very powerful holiday and something that a lot of people find meaning in. There have been a lot of misconceptions about it and what it is. And so I just appreciate the opportunity to share some insights into Kwanzaa.
Yes, absolutely. And we appreciate you coming on and sharing with us.
All right.
Okay, now let's talk about Christmas. Among all the winter holidays, Christmas is very popular and celebrated by billions of people around the world. Christmas is an annual holiday celebrated on December 25th by Christians all over in order to honor the birth of Jesus.
And the story is that Joseph and Mary were engaged, and an angel came to Mary and told her that she would become pregnant with God's son because she was the chosen one.
So, after Joseph and Mary got married, they decided to travel to Bethlehem, which is the place where Joseph's family was from.
However, when they reached the town, they could not find a place to stay as the village was crowded.
Oh no! So they decided to stay in a barn where animals lived. And it was there that Mary gave birth to her baby, who was the Son of God, Jesus Christ.
I know, I'm sure we've heard the story plenty
Yes.
of times, but the birth of Jesus was signified by a bright star in the sky. Wise men from different parts of the world understood the significance of this star, and they followed it to reach the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem. And they brought along gifts for the baby and his parents.
Yeah, and in other parts of Bethlehem, where shepherds were grazing their sheep, angels appeared to them to give them the good news, and they sang and made merry to welcome the Holy Spirit to earth.
Absolutely, and since then, this day has been celebrated as Christmas. People go to church at midnight to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. They exchange gifts, they sing carols, and they just enjoy themselves.
Absolutely. And at Christmas time, you may hear a lot about a man named Santa Claus. And there are a lot of different stories about him and where he came from, since he doesn't have anything to do with the story that we just told you.
Yeah, and the most common story is that he was a Christian bishop who was born around the 4th century AD in present-day Turkey.
Yeah, so over there in Europe, and his name was Saint Nicholas. So you may have heard Saint Nick. Well, his parents died when he was a young boy, and his parents left him a lot of money. So he was an extremely kind man, and he decided to dedicate his life and his money to help needy people.
So he started giving gifts to children and helping the sick and needy people. In different countries around the world, Santa Claus is known by different nicknames, such as Pierre Noël in France, in Belgium, Baba Natalia in Italy, and Don Cheleran in China.
And a lot of people celebrate Christmas with different traditions and foods. You may eat a roasted turkey or fruitcake, Christmas cookies, candy canes, or you may drink eggnog. There's also traditions involving opening presents, maybe on Christmas Eve. You may have an elf on the shelf or go caroling, decorate a tree, hang stockings, all kinds of stuff.
Well, that's all that we have for you guys today. We're so excited to share with you guys Christmas, Hanukkah, and Kwanzaa.
Yes.
Yeah, and we hope that you guys learned something new about the kind of holidays that are celebrated during this time.
Yeah, you know, maybe you don't celebrate all of these, but chances are you know some people that also celebrate these holidays. So it's just always great to be well informed about the people around us and the different cultures and celebrations going on at this time of year, and why people might say happy holidays instead of Merry Christmas or something like that in public. We're so glad you guys joined us, and don't forget to tune in next week. Our virtual troop meeting on Tuesday, December 8th, starting at 5:30 p.m. Central Time, is holiday baking.
Woo!
So we learned today a little bit more about each of these 3 winter holidays, and next week we will be baking something from each of these winter holidays just to get us in the holiday mood and to continue our learning and growing in other cultures.
Yeah, nothing like sweet treats to celebrate the
I
holidays.
know, it's going to be delicious. The supply list is already posted on the Facebook event, so make sure you guys go check that out and get everything you need to join us next week. And me and Alex, we'll see you guys next month. Bye.